I hear you're tired.
I am. I feel like I've been hit by a bus, David. Should we
Let
start?
me.
Should we
Yeah,
start?
we already started. I mean,
I'm
I
gonna.
was gonna share with
I'm
the
gonna count
listeners
us
what.
in. I'm gonna count us in five,
Okay,
4.
Jim, are you okay? Are you still with us?
I'm. I'm barely here.
Can somebody get the paddles?
Somebody-
Uh, Jim has had a hell of a day. He started off the day actually going to work,
Yep.
and then he played a gig, and then he
Yep.
came home and he got on the podcast at what
Yep.
is now 9:30 his time.
Oh.
So this is probably going to be a shortened episode just for the fact that
Yes.
I got to keep Jim awake for like 30 minutes, then we can
Oh.
go to bed. Um,
Oh.
there's a big brown box behind you, and I think I had some stuff on today too, but I think the big brown box is a bigger story. So
It's fragile,
it's very fragile.
and there's a hole in the wall.
It has a set neck too.
It does have a sat nav. So I made the decision based on my brain versus my heart to let my V2 go because I'm going to replace it with an ES335.
Feel like you
And
should put apps over this.
yeah, what? Oh, yeah. What should we call this? Broken Heart? Should we call this
Yeah,
episode of Broken
we
Heart?
should. I don't know.
I'm
Broken
literally.
brain or something. I don't know.
I don't. We've talked so much about what drives me with gear, right? We really have, and most of the time, well, I shouldn't say most of the time, all the time, you realize that I get driven by my heart. I get driven by. I buy guitars because I go to them by the way I feel about them when I see them. There's a very romanticized mystique about them. So for me to look at the hole in the wall right now is kind of, believe it or not, it pulls here and makes me sad. Um, but I realized that I wanted. I don't have. There are certain sounds, right? You have certain sounds
Right.
that are guitar sounds, and they're famous guitar sounds, um, and there's that Gibson sound, but the Gibson sound is really in three. Some people could argue four with the not the Destroyer but the Explorer, but it's really three famous sounds, and that's a Les Paul, the SG, and of course the hollow bodies, ES335, the Birdland, and so on and so forth. So I said, all right, I really want a 335 because there are certain things I want to be able to do with a 335. And
Yeah. I mean, it is like the semi-hollow. You
it
know what I mean?
is.
Like it is the guitar for semi-hollow.
And yeah, and the years for 335 are the 60s.
Right.
So I went ahead and put a 60s 335 on layaway, and I am selling the V because the V does not have a famous sound. So it's packed in a box, in a case, in a lot of those foam peanuts and some bubble wrap on top and bottom, and then in a box, and then that is packed in a box in foam around that box and that box, which was my. That's the box they sent my.
I believe they call this Ford box.
Yes, that's the Sweetwater box that my custom came in, my custom 22. So, what does that mean? It means that I'm saying goodbye to the V to bring in a cherry 335. And the decision of what color 335 came down to, I was told by a few people, much like any guitar, if you found one you really like and you like the sound of it, get that one. Because
Yeah, don't worry about the other nuances. I mean, especially with semi-hollows where the body actually does make more of a difference.
Yep.
I mean, that's yeah.
I almost bought a PRS semi hollow. That was the.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on those so many times because when I play one, I've always had like this feeling like, yeah, it's kind of semi-hollow, but it's not. it's not as prominent as a 335 for sure. Like when you play a 335 or 175 or any of the other like Gibson or Epiphone, hollows or semi hollows, because there's so much wing on those guitars.
Yep.
They're just different. Actually, you'd think I've had people describing to me this way. It's like, well, I buy a semi hollow because I get better sustain. Bullshit. Because actually, what I see happening with most of those guitars is it's a more low mid focus,
Yep.
but it's like the guitar doesn't ring out the way a solid body does.
No.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's not persistent or whatever.
That's why a very famous semi-hollow player it is Ted Nugent, whether we like it or not. Ted Nugent.
Right.
And Ted Nugent once said of a Stratocaster, he said once a person put a Stratocaster in his hand, he played it, and the note just went, oh. And so he picked up his Birdland, which is what he's famous for playing, the Birdlands, which he owns like all of them. I'm just kidding, but he owns a lot of them. Because there are not a lot of Birdlands. It was not a big selling Gibson guitar at the time.
Right.
And it's a very big guitar. But he depended on that feedback. He used that.
I was just gonna say, but his situation's different than most people that pick up 335s and stuff. Like,
yeah, because
he's running
335s
high gain. Last time I saw him, he's running 5150s, PV 5150s.
Yep.
Like full up and a stack of them or 2-3 stacks on,
Yep.
and he's standing in front of them, getting them to drive and feed back. And yes, they will feed back a lot more easily than a solid body guitar will.
Yep.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the sustain of the instrument itself. And like when you
No.
pick one up and you put it through a clean Fender amp, you're not going to get that unless the amp is turned way up.
Right. I mean, 335. I don't know, what did Chuck Barrett use for amps?
That's a good question.
Because I know.
I would assume he was using Bassman amps.
Yeah,
like
Fender Bassmans. Because he didn't have a lot of. He had a very clean sound.
I think he used like a lot of Gibson Lab series and stuff later too. Because I know, not Lab series, but the other Gibson stuff, the other Gibson amps at various times, especially in his early career. But I think back then, like, I don't know. So if you're after that sound, like, understand that those guys didn't give a crap about their sound. It was like, well, what amps can I get? It's like,
Yeah.
it wasn't
And how
really.
much-
It wasn't really.
And how
What was
little?
cheap?
Yeah, how little can I pay for them?
Right.
There was that that mentality. We've talked about that before. That mentality has driven a lot of very famous sounds.
Sure. I mean, even Led Zeppelin. Here's
But I was-
$200. Go down to the store and buy me some Marshalls.
Yeah, I mean, so I was listening to Run Run Rudolph, right? That's Chuck Berry, right?
He's probably done a version of it.
Anyway, and you listen to the solo in it, and it's kind of dead. It's kind of dead.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
I'm looking up Run Run Rudolph right now.
Letting it off. Yeah, I think that's him. I think you're.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, it was not written by him, but it was popularized by him.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
Yeah. So, and he was running a bigger hollow body at that time. Probably a J series, or one of the bigger ESs. If you look at the guitar that he's playing.
yeah, he had an ES 350T. That was like the one he
That's
was known
it.
for.
The 350T.
And he was playing brown face Princeton reverbs.
Oh yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
He also rocked a 335 from time to time.
Yep.
But the 350T was the Johnny B. Good guitar.
Yep. Yeah, which is why it was funny that when they did the movie for Back to the Future, he chose was it a 345 or 335?
No, I think it was a 335, but the stupid part was it wasn't introduced till 1958.
That's what I was going to say, and the 335
and the
didn't
movie
exist
did not
in
take place in 1958. So
And so that's always been a sticking part with guitar players for that movie. Although a lot of people picked up guitars because they saw that movie and that part. And when he went into the Van Halen thing on that, which obviously was mimed, but
Yeah.
still, and then he's in there. Your
the
parents are
funny
gonna
part
love
is
this.
he actually does play guitar, which is
Oh, yeah,
which
yeah.
is even funnier. And then like But you're talking about the 335 or whatever in that scene, I've always, I mean, like I've had a thing for the 335, but not necessarily from movies. And like, I just I'd seen players use them with John McLaughlin being one of them back in
Yep.
the
Yep.
Intermountain Flame days. Um, and honestly, I can't play him. I'm too small. I can't get my arm over him, and like they don't feel comfortable to me.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of people who don't like the 335 go to the 339. I think it's the
right, which is
339.
smaller.
It's a
It's
smaller
like a
body.
1% smaller body or something.
Oh, it's well, you put them together and it's considerably smaller. The Mickey Mouse ears are a little bit smaller.
Yeah,
They feel higher and more rounded, although the Mickey Mouse ears are actually kind of the same size. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. The Gibsons, that's something that I noticed about Fender. Other than the Acoustasonic line, obviously, and the 72
well, the thin lines,
Telecaster.
because they
Yeah,
weren't just
thin
73s,
lines
but
in
every
general,
issue
because there is a Strat thin line. That's the Eric Johnson, right?
Yeah, and I mean,
But
you don't buy a Fender for a hollow guitar.
no, and
That's
that's
just
what I
the
was
way I
gonna
look
say.
at it.
Yeah, you really don't have, but the other side of it is 335s are God blessed expensive.
Yeah, well, it's the manufacturer of them. I mean, think about it. Even the electronics have to go through the damn F hole. Like, it's not, those guitars are no joke.
It's kind of like
Um,
building a what do you call it? A bottle, a ship in a bottle.
yeah, I mean, well, they so what they do is they template them and then they just stick them in there and then they
Yeah,
have tools to move them into place and
yeah,
um,
yeah. They've got little leaders so they can pull stuff through.
what's a
And
335 even going for now?
$3,000 is the three to
Yeah, see, I'm surprised they're not 4 or 5 at this point, to be
three to
honest with you.
seven or $3 to $6 grand, and that's not even the super like custom shop things. The VOS, uh,
Yeah, which are noticeably great guitars. I've played a couple of them
yep,
before.
the VOS 60s model, 1964, which is my birth year, um, go for 56, which doesn't surprise me. Um,
Right.
the the $3,000 models though are actually pretty darn good. Now what's funny is the 345, which not Chuck Berry, King, not Albert King,
Yeah,
what do
because
you call it?
he
BB,
was a beat guy.
yeah, BB King, famously played a 345, which is the same guitar only with a block,
What do you mean a block?
a block of wood running down the middle, if I remember right.
The 335 is a block of wood running down the middle too.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a semi-hollow. It's not a full
it's not a
hollow
full
guitar.
hollow. Yeah,
No. In fact, I don't see any full hollows in the regular Gibson lineup right now.
yeah,
They're probably custom shop or better.
yeah.
But yeah, no, and I think his was also a semi-hollow, but he had the vibrato on it, and it predated the 335 as well. Shape was different.
I'm trying to remember what the difference between the 335 and the 345 is.
Look at that.
We had somebody return a 345. I went to buy it. It was gone already.
Is it the Veritone?
Well, the Veritone used to be in the 345. Now they're not there. That's why I thought it was.
345s have parallelograms and the Veritone switch. That's basically the difference. So if they strip that out, then it's just
Then it's just the
cosmetic.
parallelograms.
Yeah, apparently. That's what I'm reading in a forum, so your mileage may vary.
Yep.
But I don't think anybody really looks at those models of guitars as separate things, even though they really
No.
are. I mean,
Yeah.
they kind of just look at it as like, well, it's a Gibson semi-hollow.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Oh,
or
yeah.
it's a Gibson full hollow, and that's like a whole other thing.
Yep.
That's like 175s and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I don't
like I
know.
said,
I've never been super into the hollow body thing, but I get it. Like a lot of people love them, so
yep.
I'm a different generation though. Listen to the music I listen to and want to play. It's like it just doesn't fit all that stuff. Maybe some of the jazz fusion, but like outside of that, I mean, I can't imagine using the 335 for a lot of that. Because like even just playing high gain, the 335 just seems nuts to me. Um, it kind of defeats the purpose
Oh yeah,
because
I
the guitar
couldn't
loses some of its
see.
character, you know?
Yeah, I couldn't see using a 335 for high gain.
Yeah, yeah. So
Right now they're out of stock, the 335s.
for sure, because new model year's coming, and I think I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they handle next year.
Yeah, it's
Because I
going to be
wouldn't be surprised if
interesting.
they don't start
So we
handing
have
out dealerships.
yeah, we have Nam coming up, but it won't be Nam. It's going to
I
be
didn't know they were doing anything. I thought it was basically like done.
really.
Yeah, I didn't think they were doing any product announcements or anything. The Winter NAMM 2021 show canceled due to COVID-19.
I thought they
Virtual
were.
event called Believe in Music,
That's
which
it.
is not necessarily.
Right, right.
So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. I think that's more of a let's talk to our music merchants about how they can get through this crisis kind of deal.
Yep.
Um, which some of the smaller mom and pops could probably use some assistance. I was looking. I wasn't looking to buy anything, but I was just looking to see what the price of Vigier was. Are you familiar with Vigier guitars?
Nope.
So I was just looking, and I was going around to because they only have a couple dealers in the states. There's like 5 or 6 dealers. So I found one, and I think they were in Louisiana or something. But their website was like GeoCities under construction, birth of the internet kind of thing, and it says like under construction, store hours, and I'm sitting there going, how the hell are you even in business during a pandemic? I mean, I don't care where you're at. I mean, that's just insane because I don't know. Anyway, um, so you did that. I did a thing today.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give away all the information, but I'm going to give away enough to whet people's appetite. So I went to Good Time today with the intention of placing an order. I was going to buy a Fillmore. I plugged into the Badlander. I walked through. Actually, Jeff was playing it. And I was like, all right, this is too good. I'm going to stand here and listen to this for a minute. And then he's like, gives me the cable. So I plugged into the Badlander, and I was expecting like Mesa brutality, like full on death metal brutality, and what I found was like not that, which was a pleasant surprise. That amp sounds really freaking good. I played all 3 channels. I found the clean channel to be very clean, pristine. If you put it in the Variac mode, then it sort of dirties up a little bit and it gets a little bit more compressed, and you can push it harder on the preamp gain, and you can start to get into those DRA type tones. We didn't have the volume really up over 9 o'clock, but we were flipping back and forth between the 50 and 100 switch and the Variac and Bold switch, and that amp just comes alive. There's just so many different ways that you can use it to do your day-to-day operation kind of stuff. So if you don't know like how some of Mesa's amps are set up, they have 3 modes per channel. Usually you have 2 channels. Sometimes they're cloned, depending on the model. And in this one, they're cloned. So you have clean, crunch, which is exactly what you think it is. It's a higher gain crunch sound, suitable for like really hard rock or like really hard blues. I didn't have a lot of good luck with the gain control between like 9 o'clock and say maybe 11 o'clock, but 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock was great. There was a lot of potential in there. And it may have just been the guitar I was plugged into, and it may have been the cabinet we were plugged into. There's some other variables that could be in play there, but it did not. I will say this: the regular dual rec has a less usable gain structure below 9 o'clock, or like below below 9 o'clock. So basically, when you get in that territory, it's just fizzy, like weird, broken fuzz pedal sorts of sounds on a clean sound, like with a clean sound mixed into it or something. It's weird. And I really dug the crunch channel quite a bit. So then we flip over to to the crush channel, which is the third mode of the amp. And then you can actually, so the way that you can set the amp up is you can have like clean on one and crush on the other, or crunch on one and crush on the other, or crush on both with two different sets of settings. So that's why the cloning, like when you first hear that, you're like, that's kind of dumb, because you could have had 6 separate different modes across 2 channels. Well, yeah, but it's never going to perfectly fit everybody's needs. And a lot of times what you really want is just to have the same channel setting on the other channel with like the master up just a bit more. So it's, in a lot of ways, I think it's actually more flexible. I think a lot of gigging professionals really appreciate being able to have 2 settings at their feet,
Yeah.
So it does have the torpedo based IR out, so it's their chip, but it's not their software or anything. We didn't play around with that. But I can say that the amp at 50 watts is plenty loud for gigging. Like, I mean, forget needing anything more volume-wise. You won't need a PA if you buy one of these. I mean, you should anyway, but if you're one of those kinds of bands, like this will work for you. And what immediately took me was like the amount of mid-range content that was coming out of the amp was not typical of what you hear when you hear somebody's playing a dual rectifier. When somebody says that to you, what do you think about? You think like a lot of treble, a lot of presence, really crushing distortion tone. And
Yep.
that is not what this amp sounds like. It can do that, sure, but that's not its sweet spot. With the knobs at noon on the crunch channel and the gain at like, maybe a little bit behind noon, I mean, it just slays. I couldn't get past that fact. So I sat there thinking, I'm about to put a down payment on a Fillmore. And of course, I have all the money I need to buy the Fillmore. I could buy it if they had the one I wanted there. And I was sitting there thinking, like, maybe I should just take this home instead. And the thought crossed my mind. And then for about 20 minutes, I sat there and I deliberated, like, would I rather have this or would I rather have a Fillmore right now? And what ended up happening, so I played the combo back to back, the head and the combo with the Badlander. And the combo I wasn't as enamored with, and I think it was just, it's open back, there's a Celestion Creamback in it, which is fine. I'm not a huge fan of, I think the more, like the V30 for sure has a lot of fizz at the levels I have to play out in my condos. It's like not exactly my favorite speaker. I'll say the Creamback that was in that amp sounded great. I believe that was it was an M Creamback. So I don't know what the wattage on that is, but it's it's obviously more than the 50 for the amp itself. And we plugged it into the Lone Star cab with a C90 that they had sitting there, and that sounded great. Actually, probably sounded better than the Creamback that was in it. And I kind of went back and forth. And I was like, well, if I buy this, I'm not buying the combo. I picked it up. The combo is 60 pounds. 60 pounds for a 1x12. When they give you the casters with the amp? Like,
You're in for it.
Maybe this is a little too heavy for me. Especially if you have to go up and downstairs, which is a thing for me. So then I was like, they had a Fillmore 25 there with a cabinet, the head and cab situation. So I plugged into that and I dialed the clean channel, and I was like, when I first started playing, I was like, God, as good as this amp is, my heart lies over in the other amp. I flipped the drive channel, and I was like, no, we're gonna get the Fillmore because it just does something different. Like, it's not your typical, everybody else who plays high gain or plays with, like rock amps, right? They have a very specific sound they're going for, like this thick, muscular overdrive thing. And the Fillmore does that. But what the Fillmore does great is that you can hear each individual string. And it's like almost like they're all being run through separate amplifiers and being distorted individually. And the punch in the low end on the Fillmore seems to be almost like there's a clean signal being routed around the amp, and you're just getting low end off the clean notes instead of it being all distorted, and which provides a fatter sound. I mean, it is it's definitely compressed, but it's not. It doesn't feel like it's being affected in the same way that your other the rest of the frequencies of your signal are. And then of course, the high gain side of it's dynamite, um, like every other Mesa Boogie ever. And quite frankly, like that's not an amp that you would even expect at the high gain you'd even be using it. It's like that's not what it's for. Um, so I said, you know what? I've been looking at these for 2 or 3 years now, and I keep coming back and going like, that's probably the amp I should buy. I'm just gonna buy one. But I also realized that I'm probably gonna buy a Badlander too. That's gonna happen. The reality is that the Triple Crown, as good as it is, that's an amp that I've been continuously going back and forth. I wouldn't sell my Mark 525 to get a Triple Crown.
Right.
But the Badlander, I might. And that was kind of like this eye-opening moment was like, this thing does that better than that probably does it. The only thing that's keeping the Mark 525 around right now is number one, I have an attachment to it. I've played that thing for like 6 years. I know how to dial it in now. I'm still like unlocking some of the secrets, but um, I'm very familiar with it. And I know I can get some of those similar sounds. And plus, I don't get to drive it anyway in the house. So like a 25 amp is just perfect. But if my housing situation changes and like other things happen, I might keep that. I just because I've had it so long, and still buy a Badlander for like just having another thing, right? Like having another amp to play. But the reality is, I have other things I need to take care of before that. A lot of other things I need to take care of before that. So it's not going to happen like right away or anything. This is something on down the road, and it may be that maybe they come out with another Badlander. They come out with a Badlander 25 or something that makes more sense. Because I don't really need This is the funny part. So they start putting the Cab Clone IR on their amps, and the Badlander's the first one to feature it. And it's like, okay, this is a wonderful idea, Mesa. Like nobody's mad at you, but I already bought a Captor X, so like for my needs, it's kind of silliness. I don't need your cab clone thing on there, and so I'm gonna have to pay extra for it because the amp is $2,000, and I'm sure at least $300 of that's probably software and licensing, kind of thing. Um, I mean, it is a quality piece. Like you see the transformers in the back of this guy, and they're like the size of a bowling ball. I mean, it's literally like this big around. Um, the head is like 34 pounds, I think we said. And to put in perspective, the Fillmore, the combo is only like 42 pounds. So, I mean,
Be a
when
lot
your head is
heavier.
like 32 and the head is 32 and they're like lower, I don't want to say lower end, but their other combo is only 42 pounds. You might have some big transformers in there, just saying.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the EL34s play a big part in why I like that amp, which that's another component. So the Fillmore does have 6L6s, but I think for that kind of amp, you really should run 6L6s or 6V6s, depending on what you're trying to do. But for the higher gain stuff, like I'm a big fan of EL34 powered amps. So anyway, yeah, so I ended up ordering a Fillmore. That's what actually happened. I got a custom one. I wanted to because this is gonna be an amp I'm gonna keep. It's gonna stick with me. So I was like, I might as well pony up and get the right colors and stuff. So I went ahead and put a little bit of extra money into, not a lot. And I got a nicer grill and nicer color combination. But I'm not a big fan of the stock look, the checkerboard grill thing that they did. Like I'm not racing a car here. It's not going in my garage.
Exactly.
So anyway, so I was gonna ask you something about your V2 situation and it going out and all the stuff. How much
So this is-
overlap did that guitar have with your Strat?
Huh?
How much overlap did that guitar have with your Strat in terms of
A
sound?
lot. It was a little punchier, but not by much. Remember, I got noiseless pickups, which are effectively humbuckers, and that's what the V's are humbuckers. They're supposed to sound like single coils. So, of course, they're Tim Shaw design. It was 1980s, late 70s when he designed them. So it was. So it was my first reverb sale ever.
Yeah, maybe
I had
that's a
never,
bit
and
better
it's my first
conversation.
online sale ever, by the way, of any kind. eBay, Reverb, you Craigslist,
Are
you name
you
it.
are you nervous?
A little bit, yeah, a lot.
Okay, so let me share you in on this. So I got 60 plus purchases, and I actually have 60 plus purchases. I have probably 60 sales at this point, right? Which for a private guy, that's not a little bit of stuff being sold. That's quite a bit. Like when you look at the list, I was going through my sold listings and I went, "Holy crap! I can't remember selling any of this stuff." Um, I can't even remember owning it. Um, and I went through a period where I was just buying things that I could find cheaply and then like flipping them, and I'd make like $2 or $3 here and there. But the reality was I just want to try stuff out. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, anyway, that's how that happened. But I can relate to that because even now, like when I ship my Kemper, I freaked out because I'm like, if anything happens to this in transit, I have to wait for a UPS claim. It's
Now
a nightmare.
you used Reverb. Did you use their? Because according to Reverb, anything over $1,000, you have to have they
Shipping on
force you to have the
the
shipping
insurance.
insurance, and it's a flat
Mhm.
rate. It's $38.
It is not a flat rate.
Well, that's what they put on mine. It's at $38. Well, maybe it
Yeah,
was
that's not a
$38
flat rate.
because. Okay, then it was just based
I
on
don't
my.
think it might be. Man, maybe it is. I don't think it is because I paid a little bit more than that. I thought I paid like $43 for insurance.
Did you? I paid
Yeah,
38. I'm paying 38.
yeah, which is and then it just depends on the item and like what it is. And
Now, what do they do? They
um,
tax you at the end of the year for the sales tax, or how does that work?
no. They take the sales tax from the seller or
Okay.
from the buyer.
So
You
why do
will
they
have to
say
pay
that?
your fees out of the proceeds. That comes out of your proceeds, so you don't pay anything.
Well, it said something about paying at the end of the month.
That's if there's an overage on the shipping.
Got
I don't think there's any additional charges like that. And I've run into that before where like I got some charges at the end of it for whatever reason, but it was just like some fluky thing where it was like my shipping was, under or over. Which because I've actually gotten money back from them too.
So,
So
yeah, I want to talk to Reverb for a minute, and of course, this is my first and only experience, but um, it was fast.
mhm.
It was fast. It was day one done fast.
It depends on the item too. So like what you're selling definitely probably is more like there's a specific market and there are people watching for them all the time.
Right.
Um, some of the stuff I sell, like it just sits, and you're like, what the hell? Like, there's somebody out there that wants this thing. Just make me an offer. And I don't like if something's up for making an offer, that means they're willing to sell. Like,
Right.
give them a reasonable offer, and chances are they're gonna bite. Um, Now I know that there are people that troll, Reverb, and they look for like the really old listings that have make an offer button and then like lowball the crap out of them. Um, but I don't get insulted by that. Like I know some people are like, "Oh, this is such a waste of my time," but listen, like that's part of the sales game. You're gonna have that on Craigslist. You're gonna have that on Reverb. You're gonna have that anywhere. Um, that's the way that it works. But so like you jumped in wholeheartedly because like you're selling a guitar for your first item on Reverb,
Yeah.
and the first thing I sold on Reverb was probably a pedal, and it was like, even then I was like, if something happens during shipping, like I don't really want to have to go through the anxiety of dealing with Reverb and trying to make it right for the seller. And um, the tips I will give you apply to our listeners too. So I think this is worthy conversation.
Yeah.
When the person receives the item, watch the tracking number. When the person receives the item, reach out to them and just be like, "Hey, I happy to see that the guitar was delivered. Let me know if you have any problems." Um, and just like hope you enjoyed your guitar, basically.
Yep.
And like that's because that opens the dialogue about, "Hey, I know it was delivered," and the clock starts ticking on what Reverb You know, like, so like if they come back to you and they're like, well, something's wrong with it, like 3 weeks later, then Reverb knows, well, they received it here and you contacted them and asked if there was any problems.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, and I have the
so,
item as described clicked.
and that's definitely that I would say sold as is like another thing that you have to be very diligent about. If you're selling anything that is used or that you had a problem in the listing, like, and I always call them out, like I'll bold it. I'll be like, no, this is what's wrong with it, and this is what's wrong with it, and this is what's wrong with it. But, you know, just be aware, like, sold as is there to protect you for that. And if they don't read the listing, that's kind of their fault. Doesn't
Right.
mean that Reverb won't be a dick to you. That does happen from time to time. I've heard horror stories, but that said, most of the time that'll protect you.
Okay.
And I've also remember I sold that freaking Ibanez, that R, whatever the hell that was. It was an S470 DX QM or whatever. It was a turd, is what it was.
Yep,
And
I remember that.
I had to document every piece of damage on that guitar, and it was like a laundry list. There was probably 14 or 15 things that I had to like take pictures of and freaking bullet point out. When you get to a guitar like that, you just bullet point. You don't describe the guitar. Y'all know what this is. These are the problems, you know, like, and just try to describe the condition in bullet points, because people will read bullet points. They're not going to read paragraphs.
Well, I took very close up pictures, high quality close up pictures, all the way up the body, all the way up the neck, all the way up the headstock.
Yeah.
There's no question if there's a ding in there, it happened in shipping.
Well, you're probably gonna be fine regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, I sold an SRV Strat that had a hump in the neck, and I told the guy, I was like, it's got a hump in the neck. I'm like, sure you want this? And he comes back and he goes, hell yeah, I want it. You know, like, okay, here you go. And he paid damn near full price used for it.
Hump?
So,
What hump?
Huh? I mean, that's why I was like, I mean, it's been, I told him, I said, it's been leveled and crowned around, but the guitar is slowly twisting over time. And I said, I don't know how long that neck's going to be good for you, but, you know, I was selling it kind of like, I had it listed like 1,200. They go for like 1,250. And I had it listed at 1,200, hoping that somebody would lowball me. Cause I'm like, you know, that would make more sense than trying to like hide it, you know,
Right.
and being like, here, there's a parts guitar, you know, you're not going to sell it for shit then, because they're going to part it out.
Right.
So I didn't do that, but I found a buyer. It took about a week, and they were totally in tune with it. And I got rid of it. But you don't. I mean, you're not dealing with any of that kind of stuff, other than it's been refretted. I mean, that's and honestly, like anybody buying this guitar, you'd want it to be refretted.
Yeah.
If you're gonna play it, you know,
Yeah,
if it's collectors,
1981.
maybe you wouldn't like it, but.
Yep.
Where's the seller located? How far is this guy going?
Jersey.
Jersey. That's not too bad.
No, 3
I
states.
think it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, it's going.
It'll probably be delivered next day.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It'll probably get delivered. I'll put it out Monday, and it'll get delivered before Christmas. Guy got himself a Christmas present.
Very,
for
very
Ryan.
cool. When is your so when you're gonna get your 335 as soon as you get your money in? Cool.
Yeah, I don't see why I should wait.
I wouldn't.
I'll reach out to him immediately, and I'll say, I see it's been delivered. Can you take a quick look at it? If he says, hey, everything looked good, I'm gonna go spend the money.
Yeah, well, so that's the other tip I was gonna give you, which is that like until you get the all clear,
Yeah.
I would hang on to the money. I did have a situation with the Kemper where I forgot to ship the guy a power cable, and I remembered it before he said anything. And I told him, I said, I'll ship it to you in January. I was like, I know you got another power cable, because he'd already told me he did. I was like, I could ship it to you now, but there's no guarantee it's going to get there until January anyway.
Yep.
So I'm like, reality is it would probably be better for both of us involved if I ship it, because it's going to go in a flat
Well,
rate
I was
box.
very specific not to say it was all original. I said original
Yeah.
parts. I did not say original. I said
Yeah.
original parts.
I would have detailed the crap out of it. I would say pickups are original, obviously.
Yeah. Oh
bridges
yeah, I
are
took
original,
pictures.
you
I
know,
took pictures
units
of
are
the numbers
original.
on the pickups. I'd never seen the back of those pickups before, so that was a new thing for me.
Yeah.
There's nothing to see. It looks almost the same on the underside as the overside. Believe it or
Yeah.
not, it's a plastic V. I figured it would show. It's a plastic V with a wire sticking out.
I mean, that's generally what.
But
Like,
they do
every
have
guitar
a
I've ever done,
number
I've
that
never
tells you
seen
what kind of
anything
pick.
interesting.
What's that?
I've never seen anything interesting when I take a guitar apart.
Yeah,
Where I'm
no,
like,
nothing.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
maybe I'm not lucky. I don't know.
I took the pick guard off to make sure there was nothing underneath of it, and it looked good.
Yeah.
So I put it back on. I was surprised at how boring underneath the pick guard looks. I
Yeah.
I imagine that's what an SG looks like when you take the pick guard off.
Was there any like fading when you took the pickguard off?
No,
No.
it looked good.
Probably been mostly an indoor played or indoor kept guitar.
Yeah,
So
well,
not
that's
near
what
a
I'm thinking.
window or anything like that. Maybe even case lived.
And it did a lot of case on it.
Did
I
you have
said
did you
I
have
said that
machine
the
gun
case
case
was not
lib?
original. I did say that the case
Okay.
lock does not work because the case lock doesn't work and the case is not original. I said that the guitar. I said I had strap locks on it. Um, I screwed up and put the regular pins back in and mailed it. And I said, I apologize. I removed the strap locks. If you want me to put the strap locks in the box, I can. And he said, no, I'll take the original ones. I was like, okay.
And that's usually the way I am with that stuff too. Like, if there's strap locks on the guitar, I make it clear to them whether I'm going to take them off or not.
Right.
And even if I like, if they're on the pictures, I'll ask them. I could throw them in the box. I really don't care. They're only like, it's like $15 total, you know.
Right. And the thing
Not
is
worth
that
it.
when it comes to a strap lock, it's a very personal thing. Some people like Dunlop, some people like Shouter, some people
Right.
want gold, some people want silver, some people want black. I had black on there, so I don't think that. I think that's why you probably wanted it back to the gold original buttons.
Oh, that's right. They
strap
did have
buttons.
gold hardware.
Yeah, because it's all gold hardware. And the nice thing about the guitar, the most of those guitars that are online, the hardware is no longer gold. That is gone.
Yeah.
Mine
Yeah.
mine had all the brass was still there, or whatever.
The
Somebody
plating,
told
it's
me,
just plating.
yeah, it's a gold plating, but somebody had told me that a long time ago, and so. But the gold was still there. I wiped it clean and took very close up pictures of that gold to show it was still there. So I think that's probably what sold it well was that it's in great shape. I didn't mention a refret, which, but I
Well,
don't
I mean,
think.
if you get a guitar that's 30 years old that hasn't been refretted at this point,
Yeah,
that's going to be something that would have to be specified, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And then that's something. If he gets it and he squawks, then he ships it back. Like, that's
Yeah.
a return.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I don't
but
think
that
anybody's gonna because I had the original fret size put back on, um, and he didn't change all the frets, only the ones that the ones that are cut in the V. He left those in there.
right. But that's what I was going to say. But you redid it in stainless steel, and that's
Yeah.
something that would probably be
Yeah, I
worth
didn't do
mentioning.
stainless steel and I didn't do anything like that.
Oh,
So
I thought you did. I thought you did.
no,
Okay.
because I knew that if this ever happened, somebody would scream, "Oh my God, it's stainless steel! It doesn't
Does
sound the
anyway. I don't give
same."
a fuck.
I know that's
I honestly don't give a shit. Like,
do not
fine, here, take $200 off. Like, I
do
honestly don't care.
do not give
Um,
two flying fucks. So
well,
yeah,
and
it
that's
was. So far, it's been a positive experience. I'm gonna tape this up when we get done taping this. I'll tape that and have it out in the morning. I'm gonna have my son help me measure it because you got to measure the size and then measure the weight. It's about 32 pounds.
yeah. You're gonna be fine. Like, you'll get over it, Jim. Your life will be okay without the flying V2. It'll be all right. I
Oh
promise.
yeah, oh yeah. So that, um, yeah. So I did a gig tonight.
I was gonna ask
And
you about that.
it went well. I was surprised that my voice held out. Um, I I have been working Guitar Center every day for the last 3 weeks, and um, I had I shouldn't say I worked there every day. So I have a 40-hour job, and I
Yeah.
have this podcast, and I do the other stuff, and Guitar Center picked me up for 5 days a week, 1 week 6 days, and it was because they had some sick people.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and um, they also had some firings. So I
Oh,
had
even
to,
better.
huh?
Even better.
Yeah. And so I had to fix that. I was very, I was very diligent in making sure that I didn't uh, get my, um, what's the word I want? What is the word I want, David?
I don't
I,
know.
I didn't, I was very diligent about making sure that I was separating the two parts of my life.
Work and life balance.
Right, but I had no life balance. I only had work
Yeah.
balance. It
Yeah, he
was
had
work
work,
and
no
work
life. There was
balance.
work, but no life.
Yeah, it was work and work balance. And now I'm at where I have three, like I was telling you, I have 3 days this week where I work and then none. And I'm happy about none. I'm happy about it. So, yeah.
Um, there's a
What?
lot of stuff going on in the background of my house right now
Yeah.
that I'm just sort of wondering what the hell is going on.
With
I'm
Chris.
hearing things falling off
No, it was
walls and
your cat keeps flying up onto the top of that thing and flying back
oh
down.
yeah, and I'm sure it's going like this
Yep.
because he's got no restraint whatsoever.
None.
Um, he's you know anyway. Actually, this is the first day I've been home. I my wife had to go out to Las Vegas last week, and so
Right.
we've been quarantined. She came back, and I picked her up from the airport. Had the windows cracked in the car, and like which is no small feat. It's like 30 degrees every day here
Oh
now.
yeah.
And I got the mask on. I'm driving down the road, like she's got her window open in the back. She got in the car, and I said, where would you like to go, Miss Daisy? And she had this look on her face, like underneath the mask, of course, like the hell's wrong with you?
You son of a bitch.
Yeah.
The,
So,
yeah.
I drove her to my condo, and then we didn't speak for like 4 days, basically, like except via text or whatever. And I stayed with my parents, who are less than a mile from here, but um,
Oh, so you. Oh, okay.
which that's a whole thing because my cousins live in there right now. My parents are there, obviously, and then my brother's there. So there's 4 people in the house already, and then we added 3 more. So there was a lot of freaking people in that house.
I'm
Like
surprised you
you
didn't just
couldn't
put.
be in a room by yourself.
I'm
That just
surprised you
didn't
didn't
happen.
just put her up in a hotel room.
I could have and she has travel benefits, so we could have done that. But I was like, you know what? Nobody wants to do that. You want to sleep in your own bed, like
Oh
that's
yeah,
fine. We'll
yeah.
just stay over at my parents for a couple of days. It's okay. So we just came home today,
Nice.
which is I mean so like the last couple of days I haven't really played guitar plugged in. I just had an electric with me and was just kind of doing a lot of exercises and watching a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but which makes you appreciate an amplifier that much more the first time you plug into one. After that, you're like, yeah,
Yeah, it
this is
does.
so much better. Like,
Yeah, it
um,
does.
and of course the first amp I plugged into was the Badlander. Um, but all is well. We didn't have. I wanted to take a brief minute and send positive vibes to former show guest HW Tone Junkie.
Yep.
He has been dealing with some crazy shenanigans. He got COVID. His wife got COVID. His kids got COVID. They were all stuck in California. Because if you recall, he's living in Nashville.
Yeah.
They actually flew out to California to see his father-in-law, who was in hospice, and knowing that he's in his final days. And then his wife was actually sick, and she handed it to a bunch of other people in the family, including his father. and his father got deathly ill. He's still in the hospital. He's starting to pull through, but at least that's what it sounds like. So if anybody's got any way to send positive vibes over, that's great.
Yeah.
But he's now returning to work and he's returning to action. He did a little blurb today. He basically said, I never thought like anything would ever keep me from doing, my business basically. And
Yeah.
he said, I was so sick. He's like, I just couldn't finish anything.
Yeah.
He's like, I'd start something, and he's like, and I just wouldn't be able to finish it.
Yep.
So, positive vibes to him. I'm glad to hear that everything is turned up roses over there.
Yep.
And we don't want to see anybody go through that kind of stuff, especially people who've been on the show. And yeah, I did not, and I want to make this very clear to everyone, and I'm very very happy about this. Not that it matters that much. I did not receive any hate mail from last week's episode, where I told the audience that I don't care about what they think. Uh, if anybody listened to the end of the episode, you would have hear me say, I don't give a shit what you think.
Yeah.
And the truth is, I think that comment can be taken out of context. So I know we're reaching the end of this episode because we didn't want to stay up too late.
Nope.
But I wanted to address this real quick. I didn't mean that I don't care about our audience. That's not what I meant. It meant that I'm not going to allow the audience to dictate what it is that I do.
That's right.
So that's all I was saying. Like, I know that came out as really abrasive and sounded really terrible. And actually, for a moment when I said it, I realized this and I said, I'll be controversial for a bit. I'll leave this in place. And I sort of expected to get some hate mail. So thank you for not sending any. Those of you that do listen to the show, we know there are many of you that we don't actually know, because you guys come out of the woodwork. But yeah, things were good. Like, no crazy Facebook Messenger things from people being like, "You asshole! Like, I'll kill you. I'll find you and leave you in a ditch." That's kind of the stuff that I don't like getting. But I'm not on social media anymore either. And actually, there's another podcast co-host who he was in our group and he spun off his own podcast. That's Stephen Conradi, and he's got Strings to Soul, which is his podcast. But he was telling me today he's also decided to kick social media, and he said it's the best decision I ever made.
I've been keeping myself to less than an hour, and in that hour, it's only about checking to see where my friends are going as far as gigs go, or if I have any messages from family. It's to stay away from social media in general. I have not seen. In the beginning, social media had a positive influence. It has been.
I think the positive influence is the addictive side.
Yeah.
I think it's like drugs, though. Once
Right.
you've had all the positive influence, it leaves nothing but crap.
Right, and you either start to feel empty and leave it, or you continue to chase a euphoria that doesn't exist,
Right.
and therefore you're looking for utopia which doesn't exist.
Which is dangerous because in our industry, and that's actually how I sort of want to finish the show, is having a conversation. In our industry, the big push right now to market musicians to each other and to audiences is social media based.
Right.
And it's so easy to get sucked down the rabbit hole of, wow, I got to keep up with the Joneses
Right.
and see all of the other horrible crap that comes along with music promotion, right?
Yeah.
And it's important to note that people like, I don't want to say B-listers, but like the guys that are really great musicians, everybody knows who they are. I'll pick on Josh Smith because I'm familiar with him lately. Like Josh Smith has a good social media presence. He's not paying somebody to do it. He's doing it himself. But I guarantee you, Josh Smith is using his time wisely, and he's not on social media 12, 14 hours a day. Like, it's an hour or maybe 40 minutes of targeted time.
Right.
Because guys like that, for what they're doing, they're spending most of their time like sharpening their tools, getting their skill sets together.
Yep.
And getting gigs and doing that and traveling between gigs and maybe recording. They don't They don't have time to burn on other things. Um, so I just, I wanted to, because we've done some discussion about that earlier in the show, like use social media to market yourself, and I totally still believe that. But I think there's a way to go about doing it that doesn't mean you have to subject yourselves to the chaos and
Yep.
disruption that is an addiction to basically a technology. I mean, it's essentially what it is. We just described it as, the same thing as being addicted to a drug
Yep.
and the euphoria and all that stuff that comes with it. Um, Looking at cat videos, that's fine. Looking at cat videos 12 hours a day, that's not fine.
No.
Looking at cat videos and looking at politics, that's not fine.
Right.
Um, you don't want to mix your cat videos with your politics.
Yep.
And there's some devastating consequences of how that can be portrayed with your music too. Like somebody like me, I have very specific. I'm expressing very specific things in my music, and if my music starts to get identified with, the political stuff, and it would be a subconscious thing. You roll down your Facebook feed, and it's politics, my music, and then Guitar Center, right? Because I'm probably in with guitar people,
Yep.
and then like maybe something about the show, and then more politics, and then COVID-19 news, politics, and as you see like the association with me and politics in that, and it's like your brain forms those assumptions, and it's really easy to like see that and not think anything of it and not realize that your brain, the negative feelings that you're feeling about the political ad are also being applied to the other things that you're seeing around it.
There.
It's,
Yeah.
it's brainwashing is what it is.
Well, we watched the what was the name of that documentary?
I don't even remember offhand.
The
There's a
social
Netflix documentary.
media
I think it's the Social Experiment or something.
social. Yeah,
It's on
social
Netflix.
experiment. Anyway,
Social Dilemma. That's what it's called.
that's it. Social dilemma. And it, let's face it, it exists because you have a um,
They're
they
selling
created.
ads.
Yeah, the like thing was created to give you euphoric feeling.
Yeah.
Everything that came into um, existence in social media, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, has
Even
been,
Google Mail.
huh?
Even Google Mail. I mean, they
Yeah,
were the pioneers
yeah.
of how to get you addicted to something.
Well, AOL, you've got mail.
Yeah.
I mean, who else came up with a voice thing? You've got mail.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's terrible addiction. I fell out of the you got mail thing very quickly because I get my computer all day long would say you got mail, you got mail, you got mail, you got mail, you got
Same. Same.
It would not ever shut them up.
Well, but like so the parallel I'm drawing here is like, because I really want to relate this concept to music specifically and like our listeners. We have a social media presence, right? We have the Facebook page, and we do try to like interact with that once a day.
Right.
I know I get on there for a few minutes and take a look and see what's going on and see if I need to boot anybody out of the group for being a jerk.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen a lot, fortunately.
No.
But I was just saying, like, it occurred to me that with all the quote unquote brainwashing that's going on by social media, either inadvertently or advertently, depending on your opinion, that this could be damaging people like Josh Smith having a good internet presence using things like Instagram and Facebook. And I mean, I wouldn't think that like that association that I just described a minute ago would be like devastating to somebody's reputation or anything like that. But I think the subconscious impact of like their music being serious or important, maybe it's like a more basic feeling than like, oh, I hate this person politically,
Right.
but it's an association with that feeling. I just there's no way to protect against it either, and I mean, it is the most powerful marketing tool on the planet, right?
Yep.
And so I guess what I'm trying to say is just temper your expectations and realize that social media can be a dangerous tool for this stuff too if you're not paying attention, if you're not
Yeah.
like focused on what you're doing. We had a show listener actually reach out to us and say that they were no longer going to listen to somebody who had been on the show, and I won't go into the specifics of who said what and when, but because they did not agree with their attitudes that were being displayed on social media. They were basically showing their ass and being very like belligerent politically,
Hmm.
and it clashed with their viewpoint. And they were like, you know, I don't have a problem with the clashing, but they basically literally said that like their music is only suitable for one part of the political spectrum, and like if you're from the other part, you shouldn't be listening.
Yeah,
Um,
that's been happening in comic books lately. There was a
yeah,
Yeah, there was a woman who came out and said that she said, "You don't like my books? Don't buy them. Don't like my politics? Don't buy my books. You don't like what I have to say? Don't buy my books." Well, guess what? She got her wish. Nobody bought her books.
well, and you know what? Honestly, like I sort of get that. I because like I understand art, you know, I understand like music is an art, and I understand that people are expressing
Yeah,
things.
but you're not
But
working for
alienate someone instead of educate someone
right.
feels really screwed up.
Yeah, and you're not working for DC. When you are an artist or a writer or a
Right.
pencil person or whatever, a colorist for DC Comics, your job is not to present your point of view.
Right.
No
Whereas
one
an independent
cares.
musician can do whatever they want,
That's
right?
right.
That's
If you're like you are a independent artist. Ergo,
right.
your
Correct.
music will represent you. It doesn't represent EMI. It doesn't represent ASCAP. It doesn't represent anyone else. It represents David Hill. That's it.
Fine. I
And
don't know.
that I respect 100%. But if you're on The Mandalorian and you tell people to go themselves,
I think I might know who you're actually talking about because there's
yeah,
one
that's
character on The Mandalorian that has some very unpopular political
there is
opinions.
somebody on that. That's not who I was talking about for. But I was actually talking about a DC comic writer.
Yeah, yeah, right. But
But
I was just
but
making
yeah,
that point up.
there are a couple of people on The Mandalorian. See, yeah, that's the thing. I don't care about
Right.
the politics of a person on a TV show. I either
No,
like the
because
TV show,
they're an actor. Like, what the
right,
hell do they matter?
right, exactly. I
They're not
don't
Ronald Reagan. Oh wait, he
care.
was an actor.
It's just like when Bruce Springsteen came out and said he was going to leave the country if one person didn't win the election, and I'm
Did
like,
did
so
Bruce leave yet?
go. I don't care. What's keeping you? What's keeping you? Whether he won or not, who cares? Who cares? Why are you
Yeah.
still here? We, I'll
Well,
tell you what.
does it matter to us where you live?
Right.
No.
Other than maybe your family and a bunch of sycophantic friends, nobody gives a where you live, Bruce Springsteen. So get the fuck out. Get out. There's my invitation to you. Get the fuck. I don't care. Because the truth is, I've been living a little bit under the radar, and my points of view aren't as radical as one might think. I have a simple
No.
point of view. I am a leave people alone
Yeah.
and do whatever makes you happy, man. I mean, if it doesn't hurt people physically or psychologically in a broad spectrum, then do it. Enjoy
I'm
yourself.
more concerned about like the fact that uh if I'm communicating, and this is just like a psychological thing that I have as a musician and
Yeah.
and a person, right? We talk about like I feel that the purpose of music is to communicate, like that's a big
Right.
part of it. And I think that all art is in some way communicative.
Yeah.
Whether it's to yourself, you might be sending a letter to the to your internal self.
Yeah.
But I sort of like I think that all music and art really should be not only communicative but also like kind of education,
Yeah.
rather than like if you have a viewpoint. All right, let's just talk about it from this perspective. If you have a viewpoint and you think it's right and you want to show that to someone else who disagrees with you, the best way to do that is not to call them an asshole.
Right.
Like the best way to do that is to actually explain it to them
Right.
or to find a way to show them the positives of what you're saying.
And
Like
be prepared to be wrong.
Yeah, well, that kind of attitude, like somebody saying, like, well, this music is only for this part of the spectrum. Like, let's be real here. You saying that basically means that you don't agree. It's like you want to commit genocide to the people that are on the other side. You don't
Right.
care about them. Like they're worthless to you.
Yeah. And
Um,
this has gone on for a long time on both sides of the fence.
sure,
Um,
sure. I mean, like even going back to like bands like MC5 and stuff like that, and even really, I don't think there were political active bands like way before that, but
no.
um, I think like so if you didn't know, MC5 was like they did a big thing for the Black Panthers, and it was like I don't know all the specifics, but they were involved with Black Panther leadership and all that. And what a lot of people don't realize is that the Black Panthers actually showed up and asked Jimi Hendrix to become like their spokesperson,
Yeah. And
their
he said no.
musical yeah, they're officially, and he turned them down, because in his mind education wasn't about radicalism and it wasn't about violence.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I think about it too. Is like, yeah, believe me, every time I look at a newspaper, well, it doesn't actually exist anymore in my mind. But anytime I look at the news anywhere, like I am vehemently like opposed to something in every article,
Oh yeah.
and it's like the last thing I want to do is write a song where I'm just going to be like burn it all. Like I don't. Anger is anger is a valuable emotion. I've learned that from therapy, even though my anger is like really ridiculous. Anger is a valuable emotion because it does prepare us to make positive changes, and it allows us to decide when we're in danger and those kinds of things.
Yep.
And it's a valuable tool to get through those situations.
Right.
But understand that that primordial instinct to murder, maim, burn, and to harass your listeners, um, does not make you a better person.
Right.
It does not make people view you any differently,
No.
and you exercise literally no power over them when you
Mm.
do that. Like some people, it's a power trip. I'm going to act this way because I am superior to you, and that
Right.
makes me feel good.
Yep.
And the reality is, the person on the other end of it's just going to be like, "Dude, I'm just not going to buy your record. Like, go
Yeah.
away."
Yeah.
It's
Okay. I
not going to
won't
lead
buy
to
your
physical
record. And
not
I.
going to lead to a physical confrontation.
Yeah.
Not going to lead to anybody changing their mind. It's not going to lead to anyone like stopping and having a moment where they think back to themselves and about who they've been their whole life. Those epiphanies don't happen because the artist says, "You're a jerk because I don't like your political opinion."
Yeah. We've lost a lot. In that I've always said to anyone, it didn't matter, being a chief of the Navy or being, in management in telecommunications or in a band. It's not necessarily what you say; it's how you say it and how you present it. Um, and like you said, if you're going to be confrontational, which is fine, um, being
Great,
afraid
man.
of
I like
being
a lot of confrontational music.
yeah, being afraid of being confrontational has no, that's ridiculous too. Um, but if your first words are to put a person on defense, you now you've already built a wall, and your ability to communicate with them has been severely um, hurt because you're not coming through. You're gonna be stopped. All that's going on in their minds, because you got to remember we do this. Tell me that you've never done this. Somebody calls you an idiot, and then pronounces or begins to tell you why you're an idiot. The only thing that's gone through your mind is that person just called me an idiot, and I can't wait to tell them to go for themselves. So that's the first thing you want to say is go for yourself. They're and all they're doing is this,
Yeah, it's just
and there's
noise at
nothing.
that point. It's background noise.
Yep.
Um,
It's literally Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 wah.
well, we have heard. Um, I think what I was actually trying to say was there's definitely a group of people that identify with a sort of music that is based on the idea that the solution to every problem is violent, and that you can exercise your authority against people in an aggressive or violent way.
Yeah.
But the funny part is the music that those people. I think, of course, I'm talking about, and I know I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but I'm talking about metal in general,
Hmm.
right? Like, there's a lot of aggressive metal talking about killing your enemies and that kind of thing. In that music is not intended to be interpreted by people that listen to it as this is what you should do. It's supposed to be showing you like the darker side of human nature
Hmm.
and like how screwed up that is. If you've ever wondered to yourself why there are vegan metal bands, like maybe you should stop and realize that most metal artists are pacifist in some way.
Yeah.
Like they understand that the things that they are doing on stage are not only purely for entertainment value, but also like communicating something about the fact that yeah, these situations suck, and
Yeah.
like that darkness is in some way entertaining, but it's still a murder. It's still um, a historical battle where nobody won because everybody died. Like those are the kinds of themes that you hear in this music, and I've always wondered why like some of my friends growing up were always like, yeah, it was so cool because it was so brutal and all these people. It was like you do realize that like this is supposed to be sorrowful. Like it's kind of like the blues. You're singing about something awful that happened. You know,
Yeah.
I never really jived with the way that other people experience that stuff.
Yeah. I've
Um,
never been. I've never been bad at. Um, Yet people forget that often art is is a couple of things. It is a mirror of society as a whole,
yep,
or it is much like the three ghosts in Dickens' Christmas Carol. This is a good way to end things because we're at
yep,
Christmas time.
yes,
The
Christmas.
the
I
ghost of
forgot about that.
yeah, the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future. And to look at what the future could be if we continue to live in the past and allow it to go through the present. And we have to be able to look to the future and fix the future rather than fear it. We have to try to fix it.
Right. So, uh, I think taking that forward is like a thing for our listeners and like something that they can take action to improve their music
Yep.
and to improve just their worldview on music and the world outside at large. Really, this stuff goes beyond music. I mean, it transcends that. Um, I would say try something new.
Right.
Like, don't listen to the same record. Like, pick up something new, something you wouldn't necessarily listen to,
Yeah.
um, and just give it a whirl. And maybe you don't like it, but try to understand what they're saying.
Right.
You know. Um, so, I've been David,
I'm a Jim.
and tonight we've been the Practical Guitarists.
That's correct.